smells a nice glass of wine, a pumpkin beer, or just a simple soda and pizza. Or maybe put this on in the background as you work and eat cheddar cheese pretzels. Whatever it is you're up to, get ready to ease your minds as we go over the disappearance of Tara Grinstead. Now, if you thought that I was done with costumes since October is over, we were both wrong, clearly. I made a sort of promise to myself that I would relax on the theatrical scale at least and just, wear a sweater. But when I looked at this requested video and realized it was about a beauty queen, I may have mentioned it to my fiance, who made the joke of dressing up as what a few of you have called me as the tipsy queen. Sure enough, I was 10 minutes later laughing at Dollarama as I was in the lineup to make this sash and earrings. So, party don't stop. And I literally made a huge entire sash that says Tipsy Queen, and you can't even see a quarter of it. Shout out to Artemis and everyone who has, bestowed this title on me, and I'm not gonna lie, I like it. I'm keeping it. I've dubbed myself it. But coincidentally, even the Tipsy Queen needs a break. And why would I do this the day I wear this? I don't know. Do I ever make sense? Sometimes. But I am participating in No Drink November, as October was a big drinking month for me. I normally just enjoy my glass of wine, my occasional weekend where I drink too much, but October and December, where it's my birthday, Sagittarius, my mother's and my sister's, and just 2 big months where in between I'm taking a break. So join me for a glass of sparkling apple cranberry juice. Yummy. That sounded so good. that was probably the most satisfying pour I've ever heard. Excellent. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So as your tipsy queen, I will now be fulfilling one of my duties. There's so many, but this one specifically is to retell you the story, the very sad and tragic disappearance of another beauty queen, Tara Grinstead. So Tara was born on November 14th in 1974 in Hawkinsville, Georgia. Georgia seems lovely, by the way. When I was researching this, the accents were just so good for the soul. Felt like I was just always listening to the most charming, precious, gentlemanly folk. There's definitely something about hearing a lawyer seriously use the word y'all in a court hearing. There's something to that. There definitely is. So if you're from Georgia, such a small town, if she was simply out of friends or something, it would not be hard to find her or to figure that out. So it was very concerning. But there was nothing, no trace of her. No one knew what had happened. And sadly, they didn't find her. All of their searching, nothing came up. And it was about 2 weeks later, after she had went missing, that a candlelight vigil was held in town by her family and the townsfolk. The small area, like I said, was very impacted by this. You know, you hear of these things on TV, of the city, movies, but not in your town, you know? It just felt personal to everyone. So while searching for her, nothing was found at her home either. There was so little evidence that the authorities thought it was surprising and almost suspicious. Originally, the thought was that maybe since just her purse and keys were with her and were missing, that maybe she had quickly ran out and was with someone that she at least had known closely. But what the police did find out of everything was one large latex glove, just a stone's throw outside of her door, lying in her front yard. This was taken in for evidence, and at the time, this was in 2005, and although they thought they had found male DNA on it, it wasn't very usable. There was no fingerprints pulled. I think there were later, but even the samples that they pulled just weren't the best, at least from what I had read at that time. They did compare the DNA that they had to close people in Tara's life, dozens of men whom were associated with her, but none of them were matches. When they couldn't find any clues at all, suspicions were raised that maybe the person who did this knew how police investigations worked. Maybe they were involved in them. It was too clean. It didn't make sense that it could be so pristinely kept. So this was important because then they thought maybe she's with a male. And because of that, maybe they had started looking into her love life. You know, everyone always assumes it's a boyfriend. And they had, sure enough, recalled that she was with a man named Marcus Harper, whom was her boyfriend at one point, and a police officer. And he sort of became public enemy number one while this was happening, especially because he was actually in a relationship with her for over 6 years. And they'd only broken up 2 weeks before her disappearance. 2 weeks before. That's suspicious. And it was a bad time to be Marcus, that's for sure. I mean, hey, if I was him, I'd be like, hey, maybe it was me. Like, it just didn't, nothing made sense. So, the last time he had actually seen her was just a week before her disappearance, when she had went to his home and was asking if they could get back together, to which he said no, not interested. But the suspicions, they did go all over. It was not only Marcus on their radar. Suspicions went all over. They had to think about it from many different perspectives, right? So they had thought that maybe this wasn't an attack. Maybe she just ran off to start over somewhere new. Weird she'd leave her dog and cat behind, though. So then they thought maybe she was murdered, or maybe she had taken her own life, or maybe she'd return. There was just so many questions, and a list of suspects was created. If you live or have ever lived in a small town, I myself was born and raised in one. Town gossip, I'm very solid alibi, and that just made the case kind of go entirely cold. Nothing could lead to anyone. So the case actually went cold for roughly 4 years. And I can't imagine being Tara's family during those years. That would be quite devastating. But it was in those 4 years that the case sort of was brought back to life. once the investigators were made aware of this through Bo and Ryan's confessions, they'd went to the area where they claimed this had happened, and they did actually find bone. However, they could not confirm that it was actually Tara, but they were confident that yes, this was the disposal site of her body. Now, the public did not take this well from articles I read online. They didn't believe it could have been them. They didn't believe that they could keep a secret in that community for so long, and the case is still not over. There was also some that we will go over later who kind of knew. But let's continue. So Ryan did confess, and in April of 2017, a grand jury indicted him on murder, aggravated assault, burglary, and concealing the death of another. Bo, who had also confessed in June of 2017, was charged for concealment of death, tampering with evidence, and hindering apprehension of a criminal. And that's all nice and what have you. But Bo ended up being quite creepy and doing some pretty messed up things. Now remember, he's not the one that actually committed the murder, but he was the one that helped hide the body for his friend. And here's what ended up happening with him shortly after. So he was out on bond on New Year's Day in 2019, and two women alleged that they were sexually assaulted and held by gunpoint by him in Bo's home. A warrant for his arrest was issued for rape, aggravated sodomy, false imprisonment, and possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. So he fled, obviously, and went into hiding. And after about 4 days, he was caught at a family member's home in Ocilla, and the trial for Bo had then commenced on it's interesting